centre of Jewish life. There is community and there is friendship.
In the Jewish community, we are very big on charity.
And indeed, charity is one of the three great Jewish virtues.
The Maz Centre is the focal point of our activity.
2/3 of what we do at the Welfare Board is actually registered care. We have our community engagement team, inclusion team, and we also have community support services, support to live your daily life, help with managing money, right the way through to helping you to support your tenancy, accessing other services, using things like cutting-edge programmes to help people with dementia, with memory retention, even minute things like daily living aids, a kettle when it's boiled, something like that, but it all helps you to live your life more independently. But the new services that we've been doing recently are things like our Arnie and Essie helpline. People either call in to find support or we call out to them every single day to find out if they need anything. So activities can be anything from finding out about services, being signposted to other services in the city, having a kosher meal, a meeting place for your friends, bringing your children or your grandchildren to one of our young persons activities.
I think people like to be with people. It's a very basic, old-fashioned way of looking at things, but I do believe that's the case.
So all those things in one place are really essential ingredients for a cohesive centre.
Our strapline is about positively changing lives.
It goes back in history, really, because it has names on the walls of people who have donated a brick or have donated some other memorabilia.
But the Marjorie Arnold Ziff Community Centre is just so fantastic. It's very well thought out.
And often, I think the thing that people say to me is they never realised that we did that.
The majority of the Leeds community came at the sort of turn of the century after the Russian immigration, and they arrived relatively poor.
I came to Leeds as a refugee from Germany before the war, 1939, as a trainee to learn a new trade.
The Board of Guardians was set up to help those people of the Jewish community who needed help in any way.
So that people were referred there to be helped, rather than go to individual people. And in order to stop that, they founded what was then called the Leeds Jewish Board of Guardians.
They would have 2 or 3 guardians who would interview a claimant. They'd have to explain what their needs were.
The guardians, I guess in today's language, the leaders of the community, put their funds together.
And they agreed to give a modest sum per month into a central fund.
To make sure that Jewish poverty didn't become a big issue in the local community.
I mean, I remember vividly as a young child seeing my father at his desk and he had some kind of ledger and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm writing who I'm going to give some money to."
He's out, he's visiting people, he'd be back. And sure enough, as dinner finished, in would walk Grandad, and it used to annoy my grandmother so much. His week was spent, I think, gathering up food and other items that he could distribute to people.
So it's very much self-funding was the order of the day, and without the bedrock of those people and the rest of the community taking their responsibility, the board wouldn't exist today.
The Board of Guardians originated from Belgrave Street Synagogue. The president of the synagogue became the first president of the Board of Guardians, as it was called then. The Belgrave Street Synagogue was the first large synagogue built in Leeds.
And Belgrave Street, obviously, in the city centre, was the main synagogue of the city at that time.
And my late grandfather was a member of Belgrave Street Synagogue. My mother married there, my mum and dad married there. I remember it very, very well, fondly.
But Belgrave Street was a beautiful, beautiful building, and I do believe there's a plaque on the wall that says that the Belgrave Street Synagogue was there.
Belgrave Street Synagogue survived as an active community until the sort of mid-1970s when it eventually closed.
There's this migration of Leeds Jewish community, but it's pretty clear people moving up the A61, up the Chapeltown Road, Harrogate Road.
Then with the advent of the welfare state in 1948, the financial problem was in fact taken over by what was then called the National Assistance Board, and the Board of Guardians no longer needed to dish out money. So they switched to welfare activities like Meals on Wheels, the luncheon club, things like that.
The board in those days recognised very clearly that there was, well, both an opportunity and a need for some better quality housing. People like Arnold Ziff in particular I know was instrumental, Basil Gillinson, Arnold Rubin, Heinz Skine, our chief executive around that time, saw an opportunity to create what effectively is today the Queen's Hill Estate and created the Leeds Jewish Housing Association.
The development of the Queen's Hill Estate in the early 1960s provided a sort of community all of its own in one go.
So the Queen's Hill Estate, which we see today, together with further developments that followed, Linda Cohen House, for example, Stone Court, these specialist buildings for people with learning difficulties and other issues, followed on later.
So people maintain their independence, they retain their family environment, but they are in a protected, a sort of quasi-protected environment.
There was a sea change during the 80s and early 90s where we actually went out and really recruited top quality people to run the organisation full time, and the person who immediately springs to mind is Sheila Saunders.
She'd always take account of people's views, needs, ideas and the rest of it, but when it came to it she'd make a decision. A lot of what we see around us today that exists within the Welfare Board, and especially our beautiful community centre, Margin Arnold Ziff Community Centre, a lot of that is down to Sheila's vision. They used to publish annually a list of donors, subscribers I think we used to call them, and there was literally an alphabetical list of how much people gave.
Arnold Stanley and Raymond Burton were amazing people in terms of giving away family wealth, and Summery family who made their family money out of tailoring, but they might have kept 10% for themselves and given the rest away. The Seif family who founded Marks and Spencer's, they all came from similar places in Eastern Europe and built up wealth. And I can think of conversations I had with the late Leslie Silver, who I remember I'd relieved him of some money for a charitable cause, and he collared me one day to show me a letter that he'd received from the recipient of this money. And he was staggered that somebody would say thank you for the difference that he'd made in his life.
Volunteers are a key part of what we do.
We've got volunteers doing a whole range of activities, from befriending, driving, basically any job, any skill.
And it's not just that the board benefits, the volunteers also benefit hugely.
I was in the office and never had such a bad snowfall, and here Barbara got behind the wheel and started to deliver these meals so nobody was left out. Everybody had a meal that day.
If you cost the value of the volunteering that we get in a year, it's a huge amount of money, and that's money that the board would have to spend were it not for those volunteers.
There'll be many older people in proportion to the rest of the community.
But then in living longer, we're getting mental and medical conditions that perhaps our previous generations didn't experience because they didn't live long enough to experience them.
And therefore, the board will need to look at how it provides services. I'm thinking of people who are able to live independently, but with a bit of support.
The demand side is growing. The funding issues are very significant, and we need robust models which can largely be self-funding and stand on their own 2 feet, so that the communal funding which we do, which is very, very important, can provide the nice-to-haves, the icing on the cake, if you like. One of the challenges we have, as all organisations do today, is the ever-increasing use of technology, the ever-increasing need to be not just compliant with the services that we offer, but to be exemplary with the services that we offer.
The Welfare Board has, and its predecessor, the Board of Guardians, has responded to changing social and philanthropic needs and has diversified its policy from originally simply being the doling out of monetary grants to tide people over into providing a much wider service. You could almost say the Welfare Board is a mini welfare state, and long may it continue.
What an incredible achievement. 140 years, when you think of the history of the world in those 140 years and the events that have taken place.
I hope that in another 140 years 2 generations at least on from me, if not 3, will be celebrating the 280th.
My message is, we've done this for 140 years in this city of Leeds, and we've done it extremely well. We are a model to others, I believe. We have served the people that have relied and depended upon us these 140 years, and have been very pleased that we exist.
A huge thank you from the citizens of Leeds for the 140 years that the Jewish community have had such an impact and provide real, meaningful and grassroots services for the future.
Continue what you're doing.
I'm sure our forefathers who started out all those many, many years ago will be very proud of what we've done.
Our family has been involved in Leeds Jewish Welfare Board for a very long time. And we hope it can stay for a very, very long time when we have children and grandchildren.